I just want to readdress one thing because I think you're saying if, and I'm hearing a majority of the city council say we will have this conversation with the community. So I'd like to just do a little reframe and ask the staff to come back and tell us how we can fit it into our work plan and what the impacts will be. If I could reframe your request just that way, it would make me happy.
This video was intended to inform and educate the public.
Okay, so to wrap things up, I think we need to come to some sort of consensus tonight about what going forward looks like. So I hear all of the different concerns. It sounds like some of us are really thinking about capacity. In terms of um, what that looks like and compared to the immense needs that obviously we're looking to address um, with this particular item. So my question to everyone is, from based on what I'm hearing, is it sounds like we are interested in having a conversation at the annual retreat in January. It's difficult to commit to exactly what we will do at this particular moment because we're not looking at the totality of the entire work plan for the year of 2025. So with that being said, I do think the very least we can do tonight is make a commitment that we are going to, in fact, have that conversation about what a public engagement process will look like in the context of an entire work plan and what it is that we're going to be able to do in this particular area. Any comments on that? Councilmember Vanderpool.
So I want to mention that if we create a public process, we have public forums and discussions, there may be other factors that are not in this. They may rise to the top. So for example, commercial leasing, the cost of that on small businesses may raise to the top, right? The predictive scheduling may be higher up than minimum wage. So when we do that, we also have to be aware that we may end up with a different type of package, and that may affect the amount of work that staff is doing. And so I really want to mention that because whatever good policy we create, we need to be ensure that it involves both parties, including nonprofits.
Sure. And really that's the case with nearly anything that we do, right? As with whatever process that we have, there's bound to be changes. There is the potential for disruption or interruption based on something else that emerges that's more eminent or more that is of higher significance or importance. So that can happen with nearly anything that we do. In the meantime, though, I think we have a general understanding of what the Worker Bill of Rights says. And so we need to take that into account as we go into 2025. And as we have a conversation about the entire work plan, we're looking at the Workers' Bill of Rights, and we're going to do our due diligence in terms of what is actually doable for us. Now, that doesn't mean that we will even actually end up adopting something at all. Simply because what's on the work plan means that we are committing ourselves to doing the work of working on something to eventually introduce a policy, and then we make a decision as to whether or not to adopt it. So I just want to make that clear to all of us that are listening and watching tonight, that that is the process. There is no commitment at this point to do anything. And so I really want to be clear about that. What we are committing ourselves to doing is beginning a process of what it could look like to bring something forward to the council for consideration of adoption. So there's phases to this. So, Councilmember Cooper.
Yeah, I just wanted to help bring that out if you would let me, because I think that is what I heard the majority of the group committing to is a conversation with the community. And so if we're going to do that, talk about what that looks like at the retreat, I'd like us to react to something real and not walk into a blank slate again, because I thought that we would be actually talking about a process tonight. That's until this afternoon was what I understood was coming to. And so, from September 3rd, when the request came in, the retreat will be, 3.5 months later. And so I hope that we can have the respect of the people that have gotten involved in this conversation to be ready when we walk into the room, whether that's at the retreat or at another opportunity in January, to look at a timeline and a process. And if I could, well, I'll speak for myself, but my takeaway from the finance committee was we didn't want to predetermine the process because we want creativity from the city council. In order to have that be flushed out by January, I just request one addition to your schedule, and that's that there's a way for Jay and Stacy to harvest from us as individuals what that process would look like in our mind, so that that work is done before we sit down.
I was getting there, and that's what I was going to suggest as well, because we have very limited time at the retreat, and we can't dedicate our entire retreat to discussing a public engagement process for this one particular agenda item. So I think that's a fair ask. What I will say is that from what I'm hearing tonight from the rest of our council mates, is it seems like they're not looking for us to have a further discussion about public engagement. Just because it's, as I said earlier, I think we need to decide what it is that we will work on before we discuss a public engagement process. A public engagement process for what? And I think that's important for us to have that conversation first. Obviously, we can talk about, well, it's for all of this, right? But if we're comparing it to the rest of the items that we have on the work plan and what's actually doable for the city, I think that's the important conversation to have first, about what we agree that we're going to take up with all of these items: minimum wage, fair scheduling, workplace safety. And once we make that decision, then we talk about a public engagement process. And that's something that I think is going to take more time. Councilmember Madrone.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I wouldn't want a full process to be created with feedback from all of us, and then we get to the retreat and look at the full work plan and we're like, oh, that we bit off more than we can chew. Now there's other things that we can no longer do that we had really needed to get done in the year. So I agree with the mayor in terms of, engagement with us to figure out, the what, not the how. And I also agree with what Councilmember Vanderpool was saying in terms of there's this Workers' Bill of Rights that's been put in front of us, but I also heard Councilmember Parsley say, let's make it not just about a healthy workforce, but healthy small businesses. So I want to be cautious that we don't limit ourselves to what has been put in front of us by one party who has approached us and asked us to be engaged on this. I want us to be very, very careful about how we frame this work. I know that Olympia Strong talks about how many people are struggling in our community. And when we talk about a third of Olympians struggling, some of those people are on a fixed income, and and a Workers' Bill of Rights does not help them. So I just don't want us to misrepresent the good work that we've done. If this is over and above Olympia Strong, hey, through the Olympia Strong process, we found there's some other things that we should maybe be working on, then let's say that. But I just don't want us to take the work that we're doing and say, okay, well, now it's this, because we can add things to it whenever we want, right after we passed it. So I just want us to be really careful on the framing. I'd like us to work with our economic development director to make sure we have the right data in front of us. I just, I want us to be very clear and transparent on where this is coming from, why we're doing it, and what it may encompass, so that we don't end up with the kind of concerns that we've been hearing from the community.
Councilmember Parsley.
One, I think this is great. I took notes from all my council mates. And I'm not going to summarize them for you, but I did take notes. The two things that I would like to make sure that we remember is we do have this engagement right now and we have a momentum. And what I'm worried about is the conversation opportunities are here now. So how do we capture that? That is, I mean, the engagement is amazing. I haven't seen it since really homelessness response in our one community and everything else. The other thing is we got to recognize the Worker Bill of Rights is one of many, many, many things we have to do. It's a yes and situation. It's not a single option. It is, that's what the Olympia Strong is. It's a cafeteria of options, sort of like when we're looking for affordable housing, we're looking at, land trusts and land banking, partnerships with private, we're looking at our incentives for impact fees and multifamily tax exemptions. We're doing a yes and situation. I believe this is how we have to approach this topic. It's a multiple things. This is just one in many, many things we have to look at. And then I'm just going to say one little thing because I have been driving at this for a while that would be put on the part of the small businesses. I really want us to explore the potential for what does it look like for a B&O tax exemption below a certain, because that would help potentially the really small businesses be more stable, and maybe they'll push that forward to their staff and make their businesses more viable because of the way B&O tax is designed, which goes to tax system. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem, is stupid because it's based on gross and not net. So being able to go forward with someone like, that kind of full conversation. And as much as I'd like to see a baked process, I'm going to push back just a tiny bit, except for how do we capture this engagement and keep it going? Because there's a fair amount of engagement.
Thank you. And just for those who might be listening, B&O is a business and occupation tax. So, okay, well, first of all, I just want to thank you all for the conversation on this tonight. I know that this is a sticky topic for us, and we're all in different places, and obviously we're still shaking off some of what we have understood, how this was brought forward and introduced in our internal processes, and we're moving beyond that now to a place of what we're going to do going forward. And so what I'm hearing is that we're to continue this conversation at the retreat after we have consulted the city manager and the assistant city manager with some thoughts on where we want to go with this, in specifically what a public engagement process could look like, so that going into the retreat, we could have a thorough conversation about comparing what we will do to the rest of the work plan if we come to some sort of agreement that we will take action on a particular thing. And then once we have decided what that scope of work will be, we can further flesh out what that public engagement process will be. So are we all in alignment and understanding of where we will go from here? Okay. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. I just want to readdress one thing because I think you're saying if, and I'm hearing a majority of the city council say we will have this conversation with the community. So I'd like to just do a little reframe and ask the staff to come back and tell us how we can fit it into our work plan and what the impacts will be. If I could reframe your request just that way, it would make me happy.
Sure. I guess what I'm saying, when I say if, what I'm referring to is more so that we're not necessarily saying we're doing a particular thing in this particular moment. So I'm speaking very generically on purpose. So I apologize if that sounds like we're not going to do anything, but what I really mean is that we are not committing ourselves to any particular actions tonight.
That's reasonable to me, as long as we
Okay.
all acknowledge that we hear the majority of the city council saying
Okay.
this should be a conversation with the community.
Yeah.
And adding things to it.
Yes.
That there's no question that we will figure out a way to fit it in.
Yes.
Thank you.
I got you. All right. All right, so that concludes our business on item 2A. So we will move forward.
We will not